In November, 1/4 of this country will be voting on paperless electronic voting machines. Whether those machines work and how accurately the votes are counted are two very big concerns, not only for election integrity activists, but for all voters. This spring, in a number of states, electronic voter lists were missing names, in some states affecting thousands of voters. As summer began, voters were improperly purged based on those lists, removed from the rolls. This fall, questions have emerged about partisan contractors programming the machines, which will count the votes. And come Election Day, it may not be possible to conduct a real recount in a close race in a number of swing states because there will be no paper ballots to verify the vote. To explain the circumstances and meaning of all of this, what we need to be aware of and what we can do about it, we welcome Bo Lipari, Executive Director of New Yorkers for Verified Voting. Hi, Bo.
Hi.
Deanna Zandt is here, our media technologist and consultant to the Hightower Lowdown, as well as our very own Tech Girl Tip author. Also from Ohio, Steve Rosenfeld, Senior Fellow at AlterNet.org and the author of the brand new book, Count My Vote. Let's start with the facts. Let's start with the facts, Bo. There's a lot of people out there saying that these machines are truly problematic. Explain how. What are the worries?
Well, the basic problem comes when you have a paperless electronic voting machine, no electronic record. We're interposing software in between the voter and the actual record, the recording of their vote. We're essentially relying on software to record, to tabulate, and to tally those votes correctly. Unfortunately, anybody who understands computers and technologies understand that it's really impossible to create a perfect software-based system. And what you really need to do when you're voting is to have the record recorded on a paper record so that we've got a way to go back somehow, if necessary, do a recount, do an audit, go back and actually look at the recording of the vote. It's a concept that's called software independence. A paper ballot is independent of any software that we actually use perhaps to count those votes like we might with an optical scanner. With a paperless touchscreen machine, it's anything but independent of the software.
Is it possible, Tech Girl Deanna, for computer testers to test whether there's any kind of malicious software involved?
The interesting thing is that whenever you have software and you have a software fix for that problematic software, there can also be another fix for that. I mean, Bo is absolutely right that there's really no way to absolutely verify what happens. There's always a software way around a software problem.
And who owns this software? Steve, let's go to you. For example, you're in Ohio. You've been in Ohio for a few days. First, maybe tell us the good news. Is early voting going well? But then secondly, who is in charge of the technology, the software, and the overall system here? Steve Rosenfeld.
4 years ago, people waited in line for hours. Those people were able to vote without a problem yesterday, and we saw that in Columbus. But the real problem that you're talking about is whether or not voting machines who operates them, who programs them. And what we found in Ohio in 2004 was that a number of very partisan companies, one in particular called Triad, were actually programming the counters. And if you look across the country, there are a number of states where we have found that in Illinois, Kentucky, Colorado, and possibly here in Ohio and Pennsylvania, there may be companies that have connections to the Republican Party who are programming the actual tabulators or counters, and that is the problem.
When you say there are some companies, can you tell us a little bit more about who those companies might be owned by or what individuals are involved, and maybe explain for some viewers out there why people are concerned about partisanship?
Well, in 2004 in Ohio, there was a company called Triad, and the Triad is owned by the Rapp family. They're from Xenia, Ohio. They're fundamentalist Christians. And basically they program the counters. So on their website, you have they sell commemorative copies of the Palm Beach County butterfly ballot from 2000 in Ohio. And the concern is that they have political reasons, partisan reasons, to actually alter the electronic vote count. And as Deanna said, it's very, very hard to trace this when it's happening. What happened in 2004 was that when people tried to investigate this immediately afterwards and during the recount, there were reports that some of their contractors were swapping hard drives before the recount began. So it's a very, very hard process for anyone to really police with any semblance of accuracy or confidence.
How concerned are people? Bo, I know that you focus in New York, and we'll have a story from you in a little bit about how you actually were able to beat back the advance of electronic voting machine in New York State. But from your experience, how concerned are the folks at the Board of Elections, the two campaigns, the parties behind the campaigns about this electronic voting issue?
In past years, it's been awful. Awareness is growing a little bit, but by and large, election officials around the country, certainly after the Help America to Vote Act passed, embraced electronic voting technology, by and large buying into the vendor sales pitch that, hey, this is going to make your life so much easier. You know, turn on the machine in the morning, press a button at the end of the day, get your vote count. So election officials very much embraced that technology, and it was quite a long, hard battle. Campaigns also were very, very slow to get it, and only this year are we beginning to see any signs at all that the campaigns even get there might be some issues with the voting machines.
What does it mean for voters in the end, Bo? I mean, what were your biggest concerns? Do we, the voter, have any ability of knowing whether our vote was accurately counted?
Well, ultimately, that's the big question. Do we know that our vote is accurately counted? And Help America to Vote Act was supposed to be about that, but unfortunately, I think it put more of a question to that, whether it does or not. Again, you always get back to that paper ballot because that gives you a possibility to count it. When you're talking about pure electronics, though, it really is a question. Has my vote been accurately counted? Anybody's guess.
HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, was supposed to be helpful. All I hear is that it hasn't been. Is there anything good about HAVA? I mean, it was supposed to help people with disabilities get greater access. Is there an upside?
Well, two interesting things. HAVA is kind of like McCain-Feingold in the campaign finance world. It had a similar effect that all the problems that it was trying to solve, it created a whole set of new ones. And technology is sort of like that. Technology is enabling, right? And that can enable security as well as problems. One interesting thing that I was just reading about is the idea that the tools put in place to provide folks who have disabilities with greater ability to vote can actually be used by anyone. Anyone can go to a voting place and ask for these special ballots and tools and have access to them. And those supposedly have a greater chance of being counted or have more security associated with them.
Steve, coming back to you,
that's what was disorienting.
In Ohio, the level of concern among the campaign.
No, it's not the earpiece. It's just that the feed comes in 5 seconds after.
The primary season was all about developing expertise at the grassroots, and it paid off handsomely in the caucuses, in particular, the caucus states. At the ground level in Ohio, I'm curious when we get Steve back on the line, what is the level of concern among the Obama campaign, which you would think would have put an emphasis on this again. What do you think, Deanna? We'll get Steve back in a sec.
I can't say for sure. My feeling is that the campaigns aren't particularly focused on the security of the vote. They're more worried about getting out the vote. In general, is what seems to be, in my perspective, the big focus. And that's obviously problematic for a number of reasons. I mean, it would be amazing to have the level of energy and enthusiasm that are associated with the campaigns out there ensuring that people have, this basic right out there for them. So
who knows? All right, Steve's back. He can hear us now. How excited, how concerned are the folks there in the Obama campaign? Again, are the locals on it?
Well, people are very excited and they're very concerned at the same time. What I found out is that the Obama campaign has basically given the election protection piece of this, which is the making sure people can vote, that their votes are not suppressed, and that they're accurately counted. They've given that to the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. And there are ongoing discussions, let's say, within the DNC about what is the best way to do that. A lot of the activists who I've talked to are people who really know this, including lawyers and have worked on this for years, are very dismayed that the DNC is not taking this as seriously as they need to.